Beat Podcast wird euch präsentiert von Tascam.
When I started writing, it was my impression that I did a lot of stuff in the experimental improvisation scene, and it was like the output was insane. Like people were putting out albums all the time. There's still a few of those labels are around, but I think it's slowed down. But you're still really interested in making albums, which I think is interesting, because so much of what you do seems to be about the live experience. So I would just for starters, I'd be interested in how you view the album format for you personally, like as for your expression and like what role it has in the project as a whole.
Yeah, especially this one. It's kind of like for us, it's in a way it's a concept album, and like a whole art concept is probably the most conceptual thing that we've put together. I think previously we've done a few albums, and it's kind of just been like it's always got a vibe and a through line, but it's also like we just jump in the studio and record a bunch of tracks, and jams, and it's a bit more like documenting the time and space, where this felt a bit more, it's like it's a bit more of a political and creative ideology that kind of carries throughout the record. So I think that's the cool thing about making albums, is like, it's like the music equivalent of making a full-length feature film, where you get to actually develop a whole story and create an entire world within that. I just don't, you can't quite tap that depth in like an EP or singles, can you? You don't quite create an immersive world, do you?
No, not like this anyway.
Yeah.
This one like really covers a lot of ground. I was wondering, like in comparison, not so much to the EP, but like your live performances. So live performances are they like the relationship between them? Is live performances definitely something different then?
It's a bit more just dynamic in a sense. Like the live show with this project has always been like, in a way, it's always more new and more exciting and unknown, because there's like so many other factors, like written a bunch of new material that we haven't recorded yet either, that we'll be playing on the show, or we're already like pushing it in different directions. So it's like what you get with a live performance is actually always going to be more fresh than what you get on the record, even though it's not, we're not one of those bands that plays the exact live replication of the record. It's more like, in a way it's more improv, and it's a bit more of a real-time representation of where we're at musically, like, because we're always going to be tapping into some different things live,
Did the material for the new album, did that come from studio writing, or is this sort of a trickle, like something come from live performances?
A lot of this stuff was more like studio in the pre-production. But it kind of happens both ways for us. Sometimes there'll be tunes that we've been playing live for quite some time before we go and record them in the studio. So a bunch of the tunes now, we've been playing them live for over a year, even though the record's still not out. It's still coming out. So you know what I mean? Like people have been hearing it at the shows already, a lot of the tunes and that. So it can go either way, but actually this record, like I was saying, it's a bit more of a conceptualized art concept. Like, so I guess a lot more of the pre-production was in the studio this time, a lot of writing in the studio,
I was also asking because the first seconds or bars of the music are actually live noise.
It's a bit of like atmos and vibe and everything.
So you mentioned it's a concept album. So is that how it usually goes? There's the music, there's the idea before the music, or is there the music and then the ideas sort of attach themselves to the music?
I feel like there's maybe for us it's kind of the music first, and then the concepts come around it. You know what I mean? But it starts with just a groove and just a vibe. And I think this record, we was like, like a bunch of us, work in labels and DJs and selectors as well. So like we're always like just digging new stuff, and like certain sounds that we was digging was like some like quite DIY disco and boogie stuff from the 80s, and like different kind of a bit more obscure things like that we were like, yeah, let's like tap into this production world or tap into this kind of groove. And then I think from there more the ideas and the concepts develop. But yeah, I think for us it starts with the music, because we're not like interior designers or anything. We're just musicians, It's not like, it's not that conceptual,
No, but the interesting thing is that you mentioned the late 70s, early 80s production. I mean, some of the topics are actually the same. Like the topics that people thought about at the time, they're like fascinatingly modern, like contemporary in a way.
Yeah, a lot of the concepts actually came from just like what I'm reading and checking out as well, like in terms of like politics or philosophy or spirituality or anything like that. Like all of that stuff, I guess, just creeps into the music and informs the kind of, the concepts and ideas behind the music or around it,
Is there anything that's like you could now pinpoint, like the things you were reading? I know there's an Arthur C. Clarke sample in one of the tracks.
You picked that? Yeah.
Yeah, because it also is the sort of most krauty thing, which always interests me.
Well, that was an influence. Like, I think like a lot of like this kind of early like 70s kind of sci-fi, like a lot of this stuff, like the ideas and also the artistic kind of concepts and the whole aesthetic, really. So a lot of like it's interesting to like look like at the same time I'm like reading a lot of history, and like when you look at these kind of ideas and thinkers and say 20, 30, 40 years ago, and what their ideas about the future was. And that's like the Arthur C. Clarke sample, he's talking about, stuff like artificial intelligence and things like that. And it's, I guess that's a big part of the concept, is like to put yourself now and imagine the future, or put yourself back then and imagine what they saw now. You know what I mean? Like this kind of dialogue between past, present, future, I guess, is a kind of underlying concept. And the other thing is like, I don't know, I feel like it's been more and more a direction of the music feeling politically charged, in a sense, in like how we can empower instrumental music with a sense of anarchism, basically, like a sense of political urgency and a call to arms, and like have that energy in the music without necessarily writing, without having the lyrical content, which is obvious, but how do we convey that feeling, and how do we convey that feeling on the dance floor, is a big part of like what I've been about musically for the last time. So but I hear it, I hear it in like when I hear really good techno music, for me it's political, and when I hear John Coltrane, it's political, you know what I mean? So I feel like it does carry, and I guess that's a big part of the search for us, is like where does it carry through, like how do we say something like that with the instruments, or with the music alone. Yeah,
that's actually something which really, really interests me. In fact, it's actually the start of like a longest series of articles and interviews I'm doing this year. I don't know, can you make that more concrete? Like how when you ask the question, how can we, or where can we get that impulse. Is it possible to put that in, like, really into concrete approach?
Yeah, it's also about like how we support music and how we consume music and art and culture in general. I think as well that's a big part of it. I think is like being able to, what we still desperately hold on to here in Berlin, is like DIY spaces and like accessible spaces. So like,
yes.
Just that, and it's the same thing like we see happening with physical spaces, like the gentrification and everything in cities, and then it's like the same thing happening online, where it's essentially like the entire way that we consume music is becoming like so commodified, with like a few big streaming platforms. And like, again, it's the same thing. It's like, if you actually give a fuck, you're going to go and support the artist through their Bandcamp page or, that kind of stuff. And you're actually going to get out and go to local gigs and stuff like that. So I feel like that's a big part of it, is like reaching people on that level. Like, if this means something to you, like, you have to support it now. You have to stand up for it. Like, just checking out the album on Spotify, like, I'm sorry, but it ain't good enough anymore. You're not supporting the artist. Like, so there's a kind of message like that. And yeah, and I guess it's also just about like the kind of expression that we find through music and through the dance floor, and creating that that safe space for people, beings of all dimensions, backgrounds, whatever, to come and feel completely free and to express themselves in whatever way they can. And that's through music, playing instruments, production, through dancing, through anything creative, really. But like, yeah, how important that is as the vessel,
Even outside of like the consumption, like the monetary compensation question, I don't know how you see that, but I've always thought that the big issue with Apple Music, Tidal, Spotify, it's not, I mean, some of them pay more than others, some pay less, but I think one of the things which has always bothered me is the disappearance of the division into mainstream and underground. Within this, like Spotify, that's a box, and everything is in that box. But these things are not the same thing. I think it's even absurd to discuss them almost in the same context. I think you can be a fan of Charlie XCX and you can be a fan of free jazz. That is sort of the beautiful paradox in music, but they're not the same thing. And I think one of the things I'm observing now is a lot that because it's now in one place, it's also discussed in the same thing. And then the companies which, I mean, it's sort of the vocabulary has sort of this cliche ring about it, but there's these companies which have all the money and they now get to push it into areas where there's like smaller enterprises like yours or plenty of other smaller outfits, and that competition, that you can never win that on the same ground. And I think, but the underground it's something different. It's about music, and it's also about concepts and even the way you clothe, like the clothes you wear, and
it's like you can't compare like the statistics on Spotify from like small independent, music labels and artists to like what are the multi-million streaming artists. Like they're not even in the same. It's not even a fair game, is it? Because like, obviously there's clear like advantages, like exactly like you're saying, like algorithms are designed to favor certain artist, certain sound, certain formula to the songwriting, certain labels that are whatever. Who knows what kind of fucking blackmailing goes on between Universal, Sony, BMG, and Spotify. You know what I mean? Like, it's quite obvious, though, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's not even a fair race, is it? It's not like we're not even in the competition. So again, that's why it's like I feel like it's time to move outwards, like move to other platforms, like. You have to, we have to like support one another on those platforms which actually do support the artist in more direct ways, I guess. Yeah.
Do you actually think the dance floor is still has that power? Because you're now going back into the 70s and 80s music-wise. I just wonder, maybe because I've been into this music for such a long time that sometimes it can be easy to look back and make the past look too golden. But I just wonder, does it still have that power?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel it. Yeah, I feel it's empowering. You know, when there's the right people and the right music. You know how it is. It's like you gotta have. It's a delicate balance, you know, and you've got to have the right kind of ingredients all come together at the right time. And it can be magical, and it can be, I think a kind of creative, like melting pot, essentially. Like it's a space for expression, but also like coming together and ideas and blending of cultures through music. So I think anywhere you are in the world, like it still has that capacity. It's just like the same thing. It's like we have to just reclaim spaces, basically. Like that means you need to party on your own terms and conditions and not on the terms and conditions of the whatever, the state or the security or the owners or whatever, you know.
I think in one interview you mentioned from your time in Australia something called bush stuff.
Yeah.
Was something like that?
Yeah, I mean it's just like it's just a kind of the outdoor rave culture, I guess, out there where there's a lot of parties like outdoors and in the out in the nature. And like I think it's crazy because when I listen to a lot of electronic music produced out there now, I feel like it's this kind of classic thing where I feel like the music in a way imitates a lot of the sounds in nature, you know.
Yeah.
And so like I think it's undeniable that that's an aspect of a lot of electronic music, or a lot of music I hear coming from there, and I guess it's part of our sound, part of my sound in a way. But it's just I guess for us that culture was always more present than a club culture, you know. So I was
the outdoor rave culture.
Yeah. So I was experiencing like more like outdoor rave, open air festivals and stuff like that. And it's just, we would call it a bush doof. And sometimes you wouldn't even go as far as saying a festival, because it's just like some kids set up some speakers out at a little spot in the forest, you know, kind of thing. So but I feel like that kind of space, at least when I was coming up, was a lot more accessible than clubs. Or there was a lot more of a scene, and actually, and it was a lot more interesting, the culture and the music around it. Whereas clubbing, the club scene in Australia is, you know, it's small. It's kind of like the culture is not hugely like diverse or open, and it's just there's a lot of bureaucracy and kind of controlling of public spaces out there. It's hard, you know. It doesn't feel as free and as open and as experimental as what you can find in some more DIY events like outdoors and stuff like that. Yeah.
Did you ever go to Burning Man?
not the one in the US, but there was one in Australia that I went to a few times. Yeah. Why do you ask?
I just had to think. The way to describe it, it seems like a more ideal, like sort of, it has the spirit of Burning Man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I fucks with that. Yeah, there was one like running in Australia for a while. I went a few times, I think. Yeah, it's a nice scene. Yeah, a lot of hippies, but it's okay,
So, but if club culture wasn't actually where you come from, but at the moment you're still just playing a lot of clubs, right? It's
yeah. Well, I think it's such a different thing in Europe. It's like,
just
I think out here, it is quite a. It can be really like a melting pot for new music and new ideas, and you can find really open-minded and diverse and interesting spaces and communities gathered in that setting, where it's like just like the music can be really inspiring and quite experimental and quite challenging to a dance floor. And like that's when I'm getting gassed, to be honest, when I'm going out, when I'm on the dance floor. It's like when I feel like the DJ or the artist can be challenging, like not just giving you what you expect or what you wanted, but like taking you on a bit of a journey like that. And I think like naturally as we know, like in Europe, it's like the club culture can be crazy, and like it's a lot more it's a lot more just a part of the culture, isn't it? Like I mean, like naturally it's got to do with the climate as well, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Australia is like quite more outdoors and like nice weather most of the year, so it makes sense that you don't need to go clubbing inside a small room. You may as well just go outdoors,
Yeah. Not sure if 50 degrees in the shade is my ideal definition of nice weather, but it's interesting because what you mentioned, the sounds of nature, actually, I think it was an interview with Scott from Deadbeat. And he said that I believe it was him who said he went to sort of a similar event, and that's where he understood dub techno.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of nothing changed, but everything changes, like small changes in like filtering and the sounds. And when he went to an outdoor rave, he completely got it. And for me, I think I thought, I get it techno now when I went to the Berghain for the first time, and you have these 12-meter high ceilings. And when you hear a clap in such a space, it suddenly, you get why there doesn't have to be as much material.
Yeah, you can play really minimal, and the space carries the sound. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's what's really special when you see like that kind of techno music done really well, and a DJ will be playing with the space. Like they can feel when certain frequencies are resonating in a room, and they'll select and play with that. And like that's, for me, that's the depth of it. And being able to play really minimal tracks and create these very subtle variations that can just keep evolving over an extended period. It's a big influence for us and for the project, and especially how we put the live sets together. Yeah.
Maybe just briefly about, because you mentioned it, how can you get a message across with instrumental music? I mean, you've done a few vocal tracks, I think, right? With
we do from time to time. We have like different features or stuff like that. Yeah.
So if you do not then make it all vocal, then there must be something in instrumental music that is maybe even more powerful.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. It's something like something kind of it's not really tangible, is it? It's something in the spirit of playing, or it could even be in the production though as well. Sometimes a sound, sometimes we got these tools in the studio, sometimes a sound is enough to like evoke an emotion directly. You know what I mean? Like when I hear Lee Scratch Perry's music, for example, like that for me is political, and it doesn't have to be about the lyrics. It's about like how he's playing the mixing board like an instrument, man. Like you can directly feel that, you know. I think that's what it is. It's something spiritual that comes through the instrument, and the instrument could be a guitar or drums, or it could be a mixing board, you know, it could be in the production as well. But yeah, it's something it's kind of it's hard to define. And like when we say like somebody like John Coltrane, again, like it's like through his sound on the horn you hear generations of, you know, the African American story, you know, for example, like, but that's just something in like the depth of the connection with the instrument, you know, where it's like there's no more inhibition, and it's like you're purely a vessel basically for channeling whatever.
And of course, I don't know if you know Coltrane's Japan recordings, where he, there's one version of, I think it's my favorite things, and it's 50 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's just very briefly, in a brief introduction of the themes, and he solos for 50 minutes, and it's crazy. Yeah. I think you don't even have to listen to it. I think the idea of taking something and then going so far beyond it, that's almost inspiring enough in itself. The music doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, just going so deep on the concept, isn't it? Like, and transcendent too, you know. He's like, I think that's such a part of the mission, is like, even he would play music with form or without form, you know, like he could be playing a 32 bar jazz standard, and like he just keeps cycling around that many times that it just dissolves, you know, like, or he'll play music completely free, and it's also, it's like you don't even need the form anymore, you know, and it's just, it's crazy. It's too deep.
Yeah, almost, right? I wondered, did he actually like hear himself play while he was playing it?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Huh?
You know, there's this phenomenon that when a baseball player has to pitch and the ball comes to him, it's actually, like, in terms of the neural processing, it's impossible to consciously hit the ball because it's too fast. Yeah. And so the brain slows time down, and then you hit it. So when they think back, they can see the ball coming, but in actual fact, while it's coming, they can't.
Wow. That's crazy.
I wonder if it's something like that, as he's playing so fast to actually stay ahead of himself. So he doesn't actually hear himself playing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good. I can imagine it could be kind of like that with like hitting the next chord change or something. Like. Yeah.
So, but for this album, I think the title is really interesting.
Yeah.
The press release attempts to explain, but I'm just curious if you could make it just a little bit more.
Yeah. It's like I guess we wanted to explore this kind of duality, in a sense, between like. I don't know, like what's like the, you know, the kind of inspiration and the backstory, say, like behind the record, and like where it's kind of coming from, like stylistically or culturally, or like what are the ingredients that are coming together to make the music happen, is in a way the inspire element. And then radicalize is kind of like what we were talking about for me, about like a kind of political or spiritual energy that's imbued in the music, and it's like that's I think the part that's like conveyed to the listener, you know, is like how do you radicalize in terms of like how do you you fuck them up, you know? How do you like challenge, like I was saying, like challenging the kind of expectations, or yeah, but it's again, it's that balance, because like a lot, like the music still has a lot of form and a lot of familiar song structures, you know what I mean? So we're far from being a completely experimental group, so you're always finding that balance, you know, where it's like, hey, we're going to give you something that's like comfortable and relatable and familiar in some sense, even nostalgic, these elements that are, but then yeah, you know, how do you challenge and shake it up from there, I guess, is the radicalize aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's something to be said for a music where it seemed like it lures you in, and then once you're in, it then hits you with something which really powerful.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe. Yeah, there's definitely a few surprises in there. There's a few kind of like classic sounds, you know, something more familiar, and then some stuff where we were really going out in some different directions.
Yeah. Was it always going to be this expansive?
Actually, like, not really. We didn't have the initial intention of doing a double LP. It just kind of happens that way. It was like a lot of the recordings took place January last year. So we did like a few separate sessions in a few different studios between Berlin and London. And yeah, basically it was a lot of improvising and a lot of exploring a lot of new material, and from there kind of putting together the pieces of the puzzle, I guess, in the post-production, and saying like, yeah, pulling together from a bunch of different sessions and kind of creating the concept. And by that point we had far too much music to fit onto one single LP, so yeah, it just naturally became a double. Yeah.
It doesn't feel that long, actually. It feels quite
it's not a chore.
No, I mean, it's really, I mean, anyway, in the time of playlists, it's I guess it's its own playlist as well. But I think if you look at, I mean, you know, there's these super experimental things which can really, where you'll probably listen to the album once or twice, and this is not. I don't think this is it. So how much material was prepared? Would you say were there some when you go into sessions? Is it like songs?
Yeah, some of them were quite written, and some of the vocal cuts, for example, like we'd already done demos and had writing sessions with the vocalists. And then some of them were completely improvised. So yeah, there's a few tracks which are just, you know, credited as all the people in the room got together and this happened, you know what I mean? And then some stuff was like, yeah, you know, me with whoever is around in some pre-production sessions, like writing some stuff with the vocalists as well, and a lot of stuff just comes together kind of in the session as well, you know. A lot of the sketches I bring in are groove ideas or quite simple arrangements that are often fleshed out in the session anyway. Yeah, sometimes we even write a lot more melodies and stuff in post-production, and naturally the keyboard players will kind of flesh out the harmony a lot of the time, you know, stuff like that. Stuff that's kind of obvious, you know, like if a piano player is running the session and he hands me the sheet, like he's going to expect me to embellish some stuff with the drums, you know, not just, so stuff like that is kind of intuitive, where we just flesh out the arrangement all together in the room.
In the sessions you're always playing the drums?
Yeah, I think so. Most of the stuff we tracked with live drums, and then some of it even like we ended up doing like overdubs with drum machines or tracking to drum machine and having electronic elements in there as well. Yeah, stuff like that. You know, other percussion, like production bits and pieces. Like I do percussion and little synth overdubs and stuff like that.
Are you playing to a click track?
Yeah, most of the stuff we do, we hit it to a click.
I mean, it's probably, I guess, to be able to post-process it.
For the post-production, and our stuff is, it needs to be kind of DJ friendly. So you need to be able to mix it in, you know what I mean?
So you actually have DJs play your music?
Well, yeah, that's the idea.
That's great. I just, I'd like to know which clubs to go to be able to listen to that.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's out there. Yeah.
Cool, that's great.
Yeah, basically we produce the music in a way that it's accessible like that, and it's even easier to do like edits and remixes and stuff like that. So for us, it makes sense to work on the grid, you know. Yeah. Not everything is though as well. Like some stuff is completely off grid and quite like free as well. But like, you know, when we were like, okay, when you're gonna record a disco track, like, you need that shit to be rock solid, you know.
Yeah. And so were there really long, like super long jam sessions? Because some of the tracks I could imagine like it would be cool to have like a really long extended.
Yeah. We try and not get too carried away, because you know how it is. Like sometimes it takes that time to get to the depth of it, to get to the real crux of the idea. It can take 20 minutes of like digging in to get there. But I guess in a way, this is the recording sessions we run are a bit more conceptual. It'll be like, let's do a 5-minute take. If we're improvising, let's do a 5-minute take on this little idea. I might bring in something on a sequence, you know, that'll give it like just some kind of color palette to improvise with. So it's still a bit more conceptual. We're not quite like freestyling out there. And even like some of the more groovy tracks, which were quite improv in the studio, was still like, hey, let's cut it like a form, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we would jam it out and then kind of write some stuff a bit. So it'd be like, hey, this should be a 32 bar section. And that's what I mean about stuff being like playable for a dance floor, you know, like having some elements of, because that's an element of rhythm in itself, isn't it? It's like if something's a 16 or a 32 bar section, it's like that gives the rhythm and the groove to the dance floor as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the word balance before, and I think it's that. I did an interview with Stimming, which was really interesting. That's one of the few people where I actually talked just about almost about only about gear, which actually was interesting. But he spoke a lot because about his early pieces, they're never quantized, and he couldn't get them played by any DJs because it just didn't work. You can't do that. So I think he now does make, like, he at least gets it in a way that it can be DJ'd. And I guess it loses a bit of that uniqueness, but on the other hand, you get something which is still pretty unique. And then it hits you on the dance floor.
Yeah, for us, it's a big question, the whole like quantize or not, you know, because it really puts it into a different basket in a way, doesn't it? Like you know, I know as a DJ as well that I'm like, sometimes there's stuff that I love to play and I know it's super funky and soulful, but like I can't quite mix it against something that can be quite, you know, on the grid, you know. It just doesn't quite always blend on the dance floor. I mean, maybe some people can do it, like they're out there, but it kind of, you know what I mean? They have to be separated a little bit. They kind of exist in different realms slightly. but yeah, it's always a big question, and it's crazy to think how that aspect changed the face of music. You know, once things became quite gridded and quite like actually metronomic, like it's crazy.
I mean, because you're a drummer, that's I think that must be even more interesting, that topic, or more, because I would assume that a lot of drumming is about what they call the pocket, like not playing in the grid, like trying to play around the grid in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot more. I think before the invention of the drum machine, I feel like there was possibly a lot more kind of, I think at that like level of playing groove and playing time was like kind of deeper. Like when I hear records from the like soul records from the 70s, like I'm like, even the 80s, I'm like, fuck, how they like, people can play time. Like people don't play time like that because you don't have to. It's too easy now to just go in and like go on the computer and give something a little nudge or push it back or forward a little bit. But back in the day, like you didn't have that option. Like if you was the drummer on the session and you're playing for Chaka Khan, like you had to nail that shit, man. And if it was not perfect, you're out of you lose the gig. The next guy gonna come and cut it, you know. But these days it'd be like, oh yeah, you know, he's rushing a bit, but we'll fix him up here, you know. We'll just quantize him a bit, it's all good, you know. So I feel like in a way it's a bit of a lost art form. Like even piano players, when you hear somebody like, I have an Errol Garner record at home, Errol Garner, right? I'm talking like 1940s. Listen to the way he plays time, man. It's fucked up. Like nobody can play time like that. No, piano player, drummer, like it's crazy. It's kind of an old school way of playing that it's kind of a shame. It's a little bit lost. It becomes a different thing now,
I thought it was interesting that there was a crowd reference as well, because one of the things about the motoric beat from krautrock is, of course, also that it predates the drum machine in a way. But I like this idea of, before you get all crazy, try to play a 4/4 beat, like a 4 to the floor beat, and make it interesting. So that's, I mean, I guess, and even people like Yusef Dayes, I mean, or Days, I guess, he doesn't really go crazy usually in his drumming. It's just the way he plays these simple things, which are not that simple, which is actually cool.
Yeah, of course, always. Just making it feel good, you know. Like putting everything in the right spot, in the right place is more important. Always. You played,
you recorded it in the Jazzanova studio, right?
This record, no. We've done a few other sessions out there, but this one we did most of the recordings at Butarama Studios. It's over at the bottom of Sonnenallee here. Really great collection of gear and some great engineers in the room. It works for us because it's even a bit more vintage than Jazzanova Studios. Like Jazzanova is a bit more clinical and clean and very nice, but Butarama is a bit more crusty and analog and old school, which is kind of what we were going for on this joint.
Was that sort of maybe something which came after the last edition of the X Jazz Festival? Because I have that collection, that sample, and it's actually the analog theme is very big on that one.
On which one? Sorry,
the festival compilation.
So yeah. Well, they also do quite a nice setup there. I think those sessions were all cut to tape.
It was all analog.
At the brewery. They kind of have a good thing happening there as well. It's nice. It influences the workflow in a different way as well. It's not just the sound, you know what I mean? It's also about because the limitation of analog recording and with tape and everything, you kind of have to make decisions in a way that you wouldn't have to with digital recording. So it completely influences the music in a different way.
So the Somnale studio, is that one room type of situation where you actually play with the whole band?
Yeah, actually, yeah, we were all in the room. Yeah, we had like the vocal sessions kind of in the control booth, and yeah, we did some overdubs and bits in separate smaller studios, but the bulk of the recording, we did it all in the room. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's generally the way we like to do it. I'm actually like, I know it's cleaner and like the separation and to have the drum booth and the amps in another room, and that can be cool as well. But actually, like, I feel like still the way that the music happens for us is a lot of musical and visual cueing, you know, so we need to feel each other and see each other in the room a bit more, you know. Yeah, it's not like we're sitting there reading off charts or something and you just follow your part, you know, we've got to be quite interactive, yeah.
I think it's the bleed sometimes can be an issue.
Yeah, of course. It's yeah, you just deal with it, don't you? Yeah, there's all these things like having amps in the same rooms as the drums is basically the biggest problem. If you can put the guitar amps and stuff in the other room and still have them in the headphone, then it's a lot better.
Who runs that studio?
We work with an engineer out there, Daniel Notbendish. Yeah, so the contact just came through some music people here, yeah.
And then there were some sessions in London.
Yeah. So my partner on the label, Lewis Moody, he's got a studio out there, and we did a lot of the post-production there. And we did a couple of days at another studio out there in Bermondsey called Press Play. Great engineer out there, Dom Kirtley, that we worked with. Yeah, so there's a few spots in London we work as well. But it's always a similar kind of vibe. It's always like, we always go for places that are quite like analog, quite old school, with like a lot of gear and synthesizers and vintage drum sound, and kind of hit it all together in the room, you know? That's just the way we like to do it, yeah.
I actually, even before I knew you'd recorded at the Jazzanova studio, I actually thought about Jazzanova because when they did their first album, they actually programmed all the drums on that. So I don't think there's a single, I think they did probably play some stuff, but then they cut it apart again and we put it together again. And I think they've moved away from that increasingly over time. And I think you don't do that either. I think it's all like playing, right? Why is it, generally speaking, like more interesting to just play rather than maybe create something which can be like super complex or completely different?
Well, I think there's an element of like what we was talking about, like the spirit imbued in the music, and like something that's translated directly like from the soul through the instrument. Like that's a kind of an obvious thing about something that's played by a human rather than programmed. But I don't know if it's even a rule, but it's just like whatever. Honestly, man, it's like whatever the song calls for, because every song is a unique kind of world in its own. Like, and certain tracks on the record, we did go back and program some of the drums and resample and chop up some different elements, you know, because that's what the song called for, actually. You know, we might, you know, often end up like reworking some stuff, like, hey, we got some interesting takes and there's a lot of parts here, but actually like that bass line needs to be like a 1-bar loop rather than, or the drums actually we could replace with a drum machine on this one, because that's just more the feeling of the song. You know, it's not that one is superior over another. It's just like whatever the music calls for, I think, ultimately. So we don't really subscribe to any one or the other, actually. I think both have their place, and that's what I'm like saying is like, whether it's like John Coltrane blowing through a tenor saxophone, or it's Lee Scratch Perry playing a mixing board and Space Echo. These are, though they're electronics, they're still instruments, you know. The way that Jay Dilla will program the drums. You know, I mean, he's looking over us there, yeah. Like, it don't matter if Jay Dilla's sitting at the drum kit or he's on his MPC, like, the groove is there, right? Like, I don't really care if he's one or the other, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's all there, like, it's all him. So, yeah, I think ultimately it's just the music, right?
Do you think you could tell his, like, if you hear a drum beat and it's made on a drum computer, and it would, like, you would recognize his style?
Yeah, Jay Dilla, yeah, of course, because it's so iconic.
Maybe now it's been copied so much, but it's...
Yeah, there's probably a lot of imitators now, but I think you can still tell. But yeah, not many people are in that category though, where a sense of groove is so, there's such an identity, you know, with the groove, and it's so unique in that sense. Yeah, it's one of a kind, you know.
I've always been fascinated by, especially in jazz, but in general, like bands where the drummer is actually the leader of the group, of the ensemble. Do you think that drummers have a different outlook on music, on arranging, composing, even in the band where they take on multiple roles, you know? But like someone like Art Blakey, that would, to see someone direct the ensemble that way, that was really interesting for me and eye-opening. And actually now I find it really interesting to watch Drumeo videos on YouTube or listen to the drums particularly in recording. It's really interesting for me to see how that actually guides the music. So do you think that drummers have different perspective on production, composition, improvisation?
Yeah, I think for sure. Like, I think, for me, like the drums is my first instrument, and after that I moved to other instruments, and I do a lot of composing on the keyboards or stuff like that. So naturally it's informed first and foremost probably by the groove, by rhythm is like the first element, I feel, for me, and then the other stuff comes around it. So I think naturally if drumming is like your first instrument, then it's always going to be kind of the anchor in a way, or the but then again, like it's kind of like, yeah, when the groove is that strong coming from a drummer. When you think, like, when you mention Art Blakey, I know he had a lot of writers in his music. Like, there's a lot of writers and even arrangers, you know. So it's like somebody like him, like the groove is just so epic on its own that, like, just fucking put his name on the poster. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't matter whose songs you're playing. Like, it's the groove of Art Blakey. Yeah. It's the swing, you know, that. But like, obviously he's ahead too, you know, and like he's obviously got crazy musical ideas, and like you hear his arrangement, his ideas in the music. Yeah, I don't know. But for me, it's a lot more production aesthetic. Like I'm saying, like I've also been like producing music and DJing for a lot of years now. So often when producing a record, like, it's coming from the perspective of a DJ or from the dance floor. It's like, what kind of stuff I want to hear to make, you know, and, you know, it's like when you're in a club and you're mixing in a record, like how you really want that to hit on the dance floor to have an impact, you know, and stuff like that informs the production a lot for me, rather than like having a crazy like harmonic understanding or anything, which I don't really. I'm still figuring all that stuff out. I'm still learning a lot of music theory and stuff like that. So it's a lot more coming from production and DJing, actually. Yeah.
I was always thinking that because the drums are a tactile instrument, that there has to be some shift in focus. Something. I spoke to Sven Feth recently, and he said listening is on the surface, dancing is diving in. But that is, I think, from the perspective of someone who really plays to the dance floor. For me, it's always been sort of different. So I dive in easier if I just listen, if I close my eyes and do not move. But for a drummer, I suppose it has to be.
You have to dive in.
You have to dive in. You have to feel it, literally.
You have to roll your sleeves up. Yeah, I guess so. It's something like, it is more physical in just the nature of the instrument, and like, there's a certain level of commitment that it takes to even get a sound out of the instrument. But I guess a lot of instruments are like that.
Trumpet.
Like a lot of horns and everything is like that. Man, I've been working out on the congas lately, man. It's like having a gym membership, man. Like I didn't need anything. If I do like half an hour workout on the congas now, I'm feeling like it's a workout, bro. You know what I mean? Like, it's great. In the winter too, when it gets cold down here,
just
15 minutes on the congas is so physical, man. It feels so good.
It's pulse muscles, right?
Yeah. Even more so than drum set, because drum set, I come from jazz, and like it can be very controlled and very relaxed for me. But something like hand percussion is another level of like, it's very physical. It feels, it just feels amazing.
Yeah, it's the same with making bread.
Yeah, right. It's the same with making bread.